Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, April the 7th. I'm Gary Stevens. And before we begin this segment, I do have to repeat a ground rule we have at WHTC's Talk of the Town program. We will not be having any more open line today. We'll resume our open line discussions tomorrow. So we ask that if you have any questions for our guests, more than happy to take it at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. But out of respect to our guests, if you have a general open line question, or if you wanted to comment on something that was heard earlier on open line, hang on to the thought. We'll talk to you tomorrow about that. It is the first Thursday of the month. So on the first Thursday of the month, this time we are joined by Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker. He's on the other end of our Zoom connection. Frank, good morning. Hope all is well at the Sheriff's Department and with your court right now.
Yes, Gary. Good morning to you.
And she is flanked to his right by the Allegan County Prosecutor, Myrene Koch. Myrene, it's always a pleasure to see you as well.
Good morning, Gary.
If you have a question about law enforcement in Allegan County, the lawman is here. The attorney is here. 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Before we talk a little bit about some of the things that you have on your plate, I do want to touch upon something that those who were listening yesterday on our afternoon newscasts, you alluded to it in an earlier discussion on Talk of the Town, and it was brought back up because of the fact that today, starting today and for the weekend, a statewide initiative with the state police and various law enforcement entities, including the Allegan County Sheriff's Department, working on extra enforcement of distracted driving. This is National Distracted Driving Month across the country, and the Allegan County Sheriff's Department is a part of it. Tell us a little bit about what your department is doing on this there, Frank.
Yeah, Gary, one of the things that, as we see new data coming in. Data, of course, always comes in a little later than when it's really occurring. It's sometimes a year later when we finally get a lot of that information through our different sources. But one of the things and one of the trends that we're seeing is distracted driving is creating a lot of dangerous situations on our roadways, to the point where in some areas it could be even worse than drunk driving or impaired driving. So we're really looking to find out what we can do to crack down on it. One of the things that is a challenge for us, obviously, is most of our patrol cars are well marked, and that's on purpose. We want people to see us. We want to be a deterrent to people violating the law. But the problem is it's a little harder to observe people when they're engaged in texting on their phone. I mean, we've all seen where we drove down the freeway and there's somebody reading a book or with a newspaper laid out across the steering wheel. And distracted driving is a big issue, and it's a huge issue, especially for our young people who are more engaged in social media, and they're using text messaging more than what maybe somebody my age might. But it's a big issue, and it's one of the things that we feel that we play a role in as far as trying to minimize that and hopefully make our roads safer.
Unfortunately, Frank, the initiative comes a couple of days too late in the situation south of Allegan, and I know that stretch of M40 down from Allegan heading towards Gobles, and that could be very dangerous. And unfortunately, we lost a life in the situation that the initial investigation was indeed distracted driving. I hate to have an example so close to the initiative, but sometimes these examples are needed to sort of reinforce the message about this.
Yeah, and it's it's one of the things where you're going to see more and more of these types of initiatives taking place, much like we've seen initiatives for drunk driving, for seatbelt use. The whole idea and the goal is to bring our compliance levels up so that if we can get better compliance, we know we're going to reduce traffic crashes, and we're going to reduce injuries, and hopefully reduce fatalities, because it has really become a driving issue for us as far as traffic safety, because of the fact that and we're looking at another thing as being when people are sleepy and tired, the effects of driving. It seems like anymore there's so many ways that we can be distracted, and more so than what was in the past. So we just got to do what we can to minimize that.
Let me bring back a case from over really 2 years ago when Dennis Lee Bowman, a former Hamilton resident, was extradited to Virginia dealing with a accused murder. And I got stories on this whole thing dating back over a 2-year span. Either Myrene or Frank, get us up to speed on the latest developments on this Dennis Lee Bowman case.
Well, Gary, Mr. Bowman has been convicted in the Virginia case of murder, rape, and burglary, and he was given 2 life sentences on those cases. While that case was pending, we were able to locate the remains of his 14-year-old daughter, Andrea, here in Michigan. She had been missing since March of 1989, and ultimately he confessed to not only murdering her, dismembering her, but burying her in his own backyard. He has now been convicted of murder here in Michigan as well, and he received a sentence here of 35 to 50 years, which he will be serving concurrently with the Virginia life sentences.
It sounds, I don't want to say it's a cold case murder because obviously it has been solved, but it took a while, and let's just say determination more than anything else finally got the truth of the whole matter in this situation.
I think it was the determination and the dedication from all of the law enforcement teams, both from the Allegan County Sheriff's Department and the Michigan State Police. Cold case detective teams with a variety of agencies worked on this over the years, but truly it was a partnership between the Sheriff's Department, MSP, and the Virginia Norfolk Police Department coordinating on all of the details and evidence, and that's really what solved this case.
Yeah, it's solved, and it's good that it was solved because we now have tools. And I say we, being the law enforcement community, has tools now to be able to crack cases that, let's put it this way, 10 years ago, that might not have been able to be solved.
And I'll kind of address some of that, Gary. I was a detective back when this case was rather new. It still occurred before I was in the Detective Bureau, actually, which was in 1993. So at one point, this case made it onto my desk. And it made it onto several detectives' desks. And then through the years, like you say, it was a cold case. We would maybe get some information that we could run with. And while, probably from the beginning, we had a good idea what happened, we still have to have proof. And that's one of the frustrating things for law enforcement is, people will discuss it, say, why haven't we done something? And everybody may have an idea of who did it. But the problem is, we only get one crack at this and we have to do it right. And without the evidence that we need to assure us of a conviction, we can't go forward. So, like I say, over the years, there were many times we would assemble a cold case team of detectives and go after the defendant or the suspect in this case. And fortunately, with, like you had mentioned, some of the changes in technology and science and some of the willingness of some people to participate in different type of genealogical things allowed us to be able to make a case against the suspect in this and to move forward with the prosecution. So, we're excited about that. We're obviously saddened that the fact that it took as many years as it did, but without some of these changes, it never would have allowed us to move forward.
I have another cold case I want to talk about in just a moment, but you're talking about cooperation of witnesses. Last week, I believe it was a situation in Holland where a suspect in a shooting outside of a Beloit, Wisconsin high school was apprehended in the Holland Heights area where he had fled. And one of the frustrations that was mentioned in Beloit was the fact that the shooting occurred with a lot of witnesses perhaps in the area, but nobody wanted to talk. Talk a little bit about trying to deal with this frustration when a lot of people saw what happened, but they're clamming up for whatever reason.
Well, I think the difficulty is that they saw what happened to somebody. And so if they come forward, they too could be at risk. Their families could be put in danger or in harm's way. And I think that is a motivating factor for a lot of people not to want to cooperate with law enforcement or prosecution.
which makes it a point of, I'll say your case, Myrene, when I say your case being your office's case, of trying to ensure the protective purposes of a witness who might be fearing retribution if they rat out somebody that might be involved with a crime. And, you could say a gang situation, whatever. You need to make sure that they're going to be safe if they do step forward.
We do everything we can to ensure that safety and make them feel that they have the support they may need to be able to come forward. But that's the difficulty. Sometimes without witnesses, we don't have other evidence. This unfortunately isn't like CSI or other TV shows where everything is handed to you with a bow and DNA. So a majority of our evidence does come from testimony at times.
How frustrating, and then I want to go into one more avenue, and I'm just thinking about testimony, and you mentioned, Myrene, about needing the testimony at times to build a successful case. How frustrating is it when somebody who might have testimony that could be able to be concrete in a case, a criminal case, will not testify and they use their Fifth Amendment rights? I'm not going to testify. It might be cause to incriminate me. How frustrating is it? And you try to work around that situation and make sure that you can get the evidence you need in a particular case?
We do. We try to work with them. A lot of times people think they can claim a Fifth Amendment right, but if they're not the ones who actually did something wrong, they're not able to claim that. So sometimes we just have to do some education to make them aware of what the right is actually for. In other circumstances, maybe they're involved in something criminal, but obviously not the major act or the acts themselves. Then we can talk to them at times about potentially doing reductions in their case for some information. But it all depends on what information they have and how relevant it may be.
A little bit earlier, we were discussing about the Bowman case, the decision made earlier this week about that situation involving the death of a 14-year-old in Hamilton. Now, I want to bring up another cold case, and I don't know whether or not there's anything new, but it's been a while since it was top of mind. The name Harold Butch Knight out of Ganges Township. This stems back all the way to 2015. Is this man still at large? Any new developments on this particular case, Frank or Myrene?
Nothing right at this time, Gary. It's one of those ones that obviously, again, very frustrating for us because we have a suspect. We're ready to move forward, but we just don't have him. And obviously, he fled the area after he committed that crime. And we've been working a lot with our various law enforcement partners around the United States, researching and looking at tips and investigating those, but just nothing that has really been able to pan out for us. So, it's one of those things where we'll just continue to do that. With his health conditions, maybe there's a possibility that he's not even with us anymore. But anyway, we'll continue to follow up on that until we know for sure.
I just want to catch everybody up to speed if they're not aware, and I'm reading from a story I wrote back in 2015. Butch Knight of Ganges Township was 66 years old, and he's been at large since the body of his wife, 48-year-old Sarah Lee Knight, was found at the 116th Avenue home on January 13th, 2015. A new photo has been released showing Butch Knight was wearing camouflage coveralls, having his hair dyed his hair and mustache, and a vehicle that was belonging to Sarah Knight was abandoned in Franklin County, Maine, and the Michigan license plate was removed, leading some to believe that he might have fled into Canada. So that's why I brought that case up. Hopefully, maybe that might be the next cold case. Let's get to a call before we get to the break. Good morning. You're on the line with the sheriff and the prosecutor.
Good morning. I read in the paper that in Ottawa County, the sheriff department is dealing with so many mental health, about 40% of their work. I was wondering if you have that problem here in Allegan County also.
All right. Thank you very much for the call.
Yes, it's one of those things that it's on the forefront of the issues that we deal with every day. Fortunately, Allegan County has been able to receive some grant dollars through our community mental health. They're going to be opening a new facility just on the south side of town on M40 near the hospital, so that they can increase services We're going to have hopefully the ability then to utilize with their additional staffing that's going to be coming on board to involve them in a more of a diversion type situation, so we can avoid having to have them be a part of the criminal justice system. We do have a mental health court, but we need to start something on the street where when the deputy is dispatched, we have resources that we can help divert that individual so that they're not coming to the jail, because obviously that's not the place they need to be. They need to receive mental health services, not the minimal amount of services that we can provide in the correction center. So yeah, we're excited to be able to see some of these changes on the forefront, or they're becoming to us, and moving forward with a better plan for how to address them.
And if I could add, Gary, the sheriff mentioned the mental health treatment court that we have, and we've seen great success with that. Sometimes these people just need some oversight to make sure that they're following through with the treatment, following through with counseling or medications. And that is one of the things the mental health treatment court can assist them with.
616-395-1450. I might be able to get one more call in. We'll see, but it has to be very quick and a quick question. But indeed, we've been talking a little bit about cold cases today, and a little bit about, obviously, the mental health courts as well. And we talked a little bit earlier with Sheriff Baker about dealing with distracted driving. And yeah, people might say, well, you don't text and drive. But the way that these vehicles are now set up, where you have little dashboard things, you punch little buttons. In fact, one auto insurance company in one of their ads, Mayhem, says, "You're punching my face," and then all of a sudden, bang, they're in a crash. And of course, to me, Frank, one of the things that I have an irritation about with distracted driving is dealing with unruly kids. Yeah, they might be in the seats, but they're screaming and yelling. What can you do? What can you do?
Yeah, there are so many different ways that we can be distracted, whether it's eating, driving down the road. And, I know one of our captains, in fact, they'd stopped a semi that was all over the roadway. We were getting multiple calls, and the individual had spilled his soft drink all over himself and on the floor. And he was reaching over, getting paper towel, and he's leaned over completely where you couldn't even see him inside the cab. He's trying to clean up the mess. And, these are the things that we see and deal with. And in distracted driving, it is a dangerous situation. And I know we've all been guilty of doing it. It's just, we all need to do our part and do a better job of focusing on the roadway, because as our traffic gets heavier, as we see more, stoplights, stop signs, we just need to do a better job.
He is Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker. She is Allegan County Prosecuting Attorney Myrene Koch. As always, having both of you on is a pleasure. Glad to chat with you. Hope to chat with both of you again soon. I know Sheriff will probably do something next month.
Sounds good, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
And that is Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker and Prosecuting Attorney Myrene Koch. CBS News is next on the hour on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.